You believe that the oil and gas industry should pay what I think you're calling their fair share. What's wrong with the way they're taxed right now in Ohio?
Right now, if you're selling oil, you pay 20 cents on what, $105 barrel of oil? 20 cents? And if you have these liquids, which we hope we're going to get out of the ground here, you pay nothing because it's not covered. So, Colleen, what we're suggesting is, first of all, and I've told the companies from the beginning, there's going to be a severance tax. We believe that that money ought to be used to reduce all Ohioans' taxes, including small business, which pays the income tax. And just to give you an example, the state that is exploding right now on this kind of development is North Dakota. They have a 7% severance tax, and they're using it to cut their income tax and their corporate taxes. I'm proposing 4%. I'm a piker in this, but we want us to be very competitive. We allow them to recover their costs in the first couple years. But you see, if somebody's going to benefit from low taxes, it's either going to be us, where we can become more competitive as a state, or they're going to take the money out of here to Texas, Oklahoma, and their investors, and cripe, it could be people in China benefiting, and I think we ought to benefit.
When you hear that they're paying that percentage on $107 a barrel, I think, and they're paying 20 cents, it's ludicrous to think that someone would oppose taxing them at a higher rate. Why are members of your own party opposing this?
Well, I think it's a lack of information. They've been somehow frightened that if we do this, it's going to hurt the industry and they might not come here. And just last week, two companies, one is now investing $900 million and the other one $500 million into Ohio for some facilities that are 21st century. They're going to employ people, and going to be great. I think it's some misinformation. I think they don't understand the whole plan. And I think as they get more data, I don't know what else, I don't know how they can oppose it, because, look, the one thing we don't want to have, one energy company said they were going to take $1 trillion worth of value out of our state. And if we can't take advantage of some of that and let Ohioans in all 88 counties benefit, it would be a colossal mistake, because keeping the money here and letting families have more and small businesses be more successful means that we're healthier as a state. This is not confusing or complicated. It's pretty simple.
Why didn't you talk to members of your party, leaders, to Batchelder, or to other members of the party
they
ahead
knew
of time?
about this for a long time.
And what was their reaction at that time when those discussions were underway?
I said, listen, we're going to get this done. This has to happen. And, you know, with some of them, there was just like no reaction. Sort of like, okay, I hear you. And that's the way it generally works. You inform them about things, and sometimes they want to think about it. And there's nothing wrong with them wanting to take time to think about this. I'm not, first of all, it doesn't matter. I'm here to serve Ohio. I'm not here to be a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal, conservative. It's the way I've always operated. There's no change here in me. And, you know, I don't know why they didn't, you know, I don't know why they've decided to do what they've done, but I've been talking to a few of them, and this will work out over time. But if it takes every day, every week, every month, every year, Ohioans need to benefit from this. Because, Colleen, this will strengthen our state economically. I mean, look, all over the country, businesses are trying to figure out how to bring their income taxes down. And if we do that, we become more competitive. Now, here's the interesting thing. When I took office, we were getting slaughtered. But, you know, because of the work of the legislature, the team, everything else, we're now the #1 job creator in the Midwest and the #5 job creator in the country. It's a terrific turnaround. And the credit agencies, while they're downgrading the world, have improved our outlook. So this is another step in the direction of making Ohio stronger economically.
What should people do if they're listening to this and they say, John Kasich's right, I want my lawmaker to know that we want the oil and gas industry to be taxed for the resources they remove from this state?
Email them.
Should they be doing something?
Yeah, email them, you know, call their offices, say that, and look, we don't have to work them over or accuse them of anything or beat them up. I mean, it's just like, look at the facts and make a good decision. One of the arguments against this is, well, people don't know what's in the ground, so how can we tax them? Well, if the stuff is not in the ground, they won't pay any taxes. See, because these companies are going to make a ton of money, and I'm for free markets and free enterprise. But we've got to get some of our share. And I'll tell you another reason, Colleen. This prosperity shouldn't just be reserved for a part of Ohio. It ought to affect all of Ohio, and it will strengthen Ohio. And when you think about North Dakota having a severance tax of 7% and lowering their income tax, they're shifting their tax burden on us. Texas has shifted their tax burden on us. They have no income tax. They've created more jobs than I think all the country put together in Texas. Oklahoma trying to get lower taxes, and you know they're big in oil and gas. And actually, the plan that we are proposing was something that the industry supported in Arkansas. It's not like we pulled this out of thin air. So, you know, in this business of politics, you might recall, and you followed me for a long time, you go after limit the production of the B-2 bomber, try to close loopholes on that were inappropriate in the tax code, to try to balance the budget. Things take time, and this may take some time, but I think we're going to get there on this.
I have to ask you as well, since we're talking a little bit about politics, there's been an inter-party squabble between people who are John Kasich supporters and people who are supporters of Kevin DeWine in the Central Committee and as the head of the Republican Party in the state. There's a certain irony when Republicans had such vast victories in the state to now be having this kind of a family squabble.
Oh, you know, first of all, Colleen, look, I just introduced a 3,500-page bill that has significant changes in education, creates an independent energy policy, helps to make the state run more efficiently, more effectively, saves another $90 million. And this is a minor issue for me. I got too much I'm working on to worry so much about that. That's just what happens in political parties and in families. It's just not any big deal to me.
Are you satisfied with his plan to resign in 2013?
I really am not even stopped to think about it. I mean, seriously, today I'm on the road all day. You know, we did something today, a very exciting thing that you should know about. We are now going to direct the education system to take developmentally disabled students and try to get them in the right workplace. If they need a sheltered workshop where they'll make very little money, that's okay, because that's based on their skills. But if they have the capability to do what they're doing at a place like Ohio Health, where they can earn a decent living and also be able to use the skills the Lord's given them, we're pushing that.
Are these adults or high school students?
Well, right now they're high school students. As they work their way through the system, it will be thought that through the schools that it should be employment first, not the sheltered workshop first. If they need the sheltered workshop because of their skill level, that's okay. But like at Ohio Health, you know, they're employing a number of people who are developmentally disabled, and these employees are excited and they're making a decent amount of, you know, more money. But what's most important, the Lord's given them capability, and instead of kind of putting them in the shadows out here, you know, I'm really happy today that I've got a developmental disabilities expert who's pushed this, and we're making progress for folks like that. So all this other political stuff, it's so secondary to me, I have to tell you.
Well, I also have to ask you, you have formed an alliance of sorts with the Democratic mayor in Cleveland for changes that you want to see in education. So you touched on it earlier that you are willing to work across the aisle. This is kind of a big initiative, is it not? You
sure
teaming up with the Democrat?
No, but Colleen, look, I think that, you know, a lot of the hubbub and everything we've seen, we did prison reform, sentencing reform, to give people a second chance. That was a pure bipartisan effort. We did the Teach for America to bring these outstanding, energetic young people into the school system. It was bipartisan. We have a lot of bipartisan efforts. In fact, this week I'm going to be meeting with about 10 Democrats to just hear their concerns. So this is not unusual. I've been doing these things all of my career. Some things you fight on, but there's things you agree on. And the mayor of Cleveland has shown great courage. Their school system's in trouble. They have too high of a dropout rate, too low of a graduation rate. And I told the mayor, what you're doing for children, I'll use my last breath to pass it. But it's got to be the mayor's plan. It has to be bipartisan, because if we don't get enough bipartisan support, I'm afraid it will die. And if it dies, it's going to have a very big negative impact on the Cleveland schools And who wants to see that happen?
Is that a program, though, that you could take statewide, or is this something that's more directed at this
Well,
specific
right now
urban
it's
school
directed at
district?
Cleveland. It's directed at Cleveland, but a lot of the urban districts have the same kind of challenges that they have in Cleveland, but it's Cleveland first now. It's a pilot project to get it going in Cleveland, and you know, I just hope that the mayor can be successful. But again, you know, I even asked people in my church to pray that we would get enough people to co-sponsor the bill so we could pass it. It's Colleen, look, education, in urban education with, you know, a 50% dropout rate, what happens to those folks? And when do they get their lives back? It's just not right. And so, you know, I was just last week or 2 weeks ago, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger out here, and we're promoting an after-school all-star program in the Columbus schools. 6 schools would get it. We're going to take it to Dayton and Toledo, and it's designed to take kids and tutor them and teach them about fitness and nutrition. And if we don't invest in our children to give them the chances, we'll be held accountable, and I'm going to do what I can do.
Well, I can't let you go without circling back to this tax issue. What's your next step now? How do you know, you say you're confident you can get it through. How are you going to get it through?
I think it's going to take time, and it's going to take an education process of both the public and the legislature. And look, I've given them a lot on their plate. A 3,500-page bill. No governor has ever done this before. Usually you do a budget, you wait 2 years, and you do another one. I told my team, we're doing one every year because we don't have time to waste. And there's a lot on their plate. And I'm not opposed to them thinking about this carefully, and I'm not here to criticize them, but I am here to say I've got to make sure that Ohioans are going to benefit from lower income taxes. Our communities will have more money. Our businesses, small businesses, will be healthier. And so I'm going to fight every day, every week. I'll do the interviews. We'll go out and line people up, you know. In this business, you have to be patient. If you have the right idea, even if people don't get it the first time, you figure out every angle you can use to try to get them to say, okay, you know, maybe we'll do this.
Do you characterize yourself right now as angry, frustrated, disappointed?
No, I would characterize myself as I've seen this movie before, and what I've learned from this is patience, encouragement, focus, and don't give up till you get it done.
You are getting a lot of support from editorial writers around the state. For Joe Hallett yesterday, I don't know if you saw what he wrote in the paper. Some other editorials around the state are saying, hey, the governor is in the middle of a year when he doesn't have to present a budget, making some changes and making some significant
Colleen,
changes. Are you surprised that suddenly all these editorial writers are saying, hey, he's doing a good job?
Well, look, it's taken time for people to get to know me. You've known me for a long time, and you know that I'm always doing these things and thinking. A lot of them just didn't get me, and then all the hubbub from collective bargaining and the fighting sort of obscured where we were. But look, when I was in here the last time, we had an $8 billion hole. It's gone. We had 89 cents in our rainy day fund. We now have $250 million. Our credit is improved. Our job situation is improved. And it's because of where our location, our workers, and maybe a little of what we're doing. So I'm pleased. But look, I told the folks that work with me, because we're idea driven, we cannot afford to wait to create an independent energy policy for Ohio. We're talking about shale. We're promoting renewables. We're promoting clean coal. We're promoting smart grid. We want to create a compressed natural gas industry where we can drive around in cars that are powered by natural gas. I mean, this is exciting stuff. Our education reform. You know what we're going to say now is that kids, even at an earlier age, can begin to get a sense of career opportunities so that when they're in school, they can start to dream about what they want to be. We're going to make the grading system simpler so parents can see how their schools are doing. This stuff is really important. And then to make government simpler and more effective. We can do this every single day, and it's great.
You know, some people have said, rather than cut the income tax, that it won't be that noticeable to the average Ohio family. Why not give more money back to the community funds, back to schools who are now having to go to the voters once again for levies? They're paying more on one hand, getting an income tax cut on the other. Why not give money back to communities, police departments, schools?
Well, because you want to create an economic environment where you have growth. Because when companies locate, you know, I was just in Harrison County where they're going to have this huge investment. People are going to, there's going to be 700 people building these facilities. Think of the revenue that goes to the local community. And then when it operates and the industry's connected to it, it is a lasting situation. When you create economic development, it rises all ships. So to, you know, sort of plug this hole or plug that hole, and look, with the schools, we just really believe that we need to have more shared services. We need to be in a situation where the schools, where they're getting more dollars in the classroom. And, you know, I'm sensitive to all that. You know, that's why we tried to give them more additional tools for them to work together. But I'd rather create an economic environment that will lift all the schools, all the communities, everything there, because the more jobs we have, the better we do. Look at our revenue numbers. As we've created more jobs in Ohio, we have more revenue, and it allows me to do more things, including the fact that I'm going to give a couple $1 million now to the children's hospitals, you know. So the best thing to do is to get people working, because, Colleen, when people don't work, you know what happens. You get split families, you get drug abuse. I think this is the best thing to create that economic environment. And I don't want other states to get ahead of us. They're already ahead of us in some ways. We need to beat them. And they're all focusing on the kind of things that I'm focusing on.
All right, Governor, thank you for talking to us. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. I love it.
Anything we missed that you wanted to talk about?
Well, let's see. We covered some of the education. I'll give you another thing that's happened. You know, I asked the university presidents to work together. In the past, they had this little formula where everybody got a little piece of the pie. I said, forget that. Let's get everybody working together. And Ohio State advocates for Kent State, and Kent State advocates for Stark State. And for the first time in Ohio history, we don't have this formula that passes out a little bit to everybody. They've come together and they have come up with a program to create priorities. And it is the beginning of creating a university system rather than a system of universities. And we want to drive them more towards training people for jobs that exist, graduating students so their numbers drive up, because the dropout rate in our colleges and community colleges is too low, and also to commercialize. When they do research, have it become something that somebody's going to want to create a company so that we can create wealth. That's what it's all about in Ohio. But I've got to tell you, Colleen, looking at where we are with our diversity, the scale of this state, the capabilities of our people, we believe that we can be successful in a number of different areas if we just continue to focus. And I think our Jobs Ohio is working because we have people who are qualified to talk to the decision makers in these industries. I mean, you know, as this great French priest once said, Fenelon, I just read this, I read it again. Don't drink too deep when it's good, and don't get too down when it's bad. Level is the watchword for the state of Ohio and the governor, which would be me.
By the way, you went to the basketball game.
Oh, it was great. Listen, I went to the basketball game. Well, the president, the prime minister of Great Britain.
I know, and I'm wondering now, with Ohio seeming to have this turnaround, you mentioned it yourself, these jobs are turning around. Who's going to get credit for the turnaround in Ohio, you or Barack Obama?
You know, Colleen, seriously, what people sometimes don't understand, they wouldn't understand about me, is my validation comes from a higher place, you know. We start worrying about who gets credit and arguing over that. We're insulting people who have been out of work, and I don't want to do that. I mean, I've been in this too long, and I'm getting too old to be sitting around saying, give me the credit, you know. I'm not going to do that. And I've told the president that. You know, I said, look, you know, people want me to take credit, and, you know, I said, I'm not going to do that. I had a great opportunity to talk to him about the fact that Ohio could become a model for the way to protect the environment and take advantage of this energy. I thanked him for the effort that we got, the SBA loans for the people hit by the tornadoes in Cincinnati. You know, and I talked to him about a variety of things. This is not my first time with the president. You know, I had a big golf match with him.
Yeah.
I go to basketball games with him.
You're on a sports track.
But the prime minister was also really good. And I'll tell you, the prime minister's chief of staff was there. And at that game, one of the players shot the ball, and it was an air ball. And I turned to him and I said, that's what we call an air ball. And he said, yes, I read about that. And then a few minutes later, their team was coming down the court and they lobbed the ball up and a guy dunked it. And he looked at me, he said, that's a slam dunk, isn't it? It was precious. So my family is headed for spring break. They're going to go to London, and I think I scored them a visit to 10 Downing Street, which was worth going to the game. But you know what?
They're going without you?
Yeah, they're going to go with I got to stay here and work. But you know what's great about spending time like with the president and the prime minister and all that, and the chief of staff to the president, who I've known for a long time, these lines of communication must be opened. I talked to them about our health care reform. I've talked to them about, as I said, about energy. I've talked to them about Piketon. This ability to be able to communicate, because, you know, Colleen, I have to tell you, the greatest shocking thing that I've seen being back in politics is the lineup of Republicans and Democrats. And throughout my career, you know, we did the budget bill with Bill Clinton. You know, it just, I never saw it like this. So to be involved in breaking this down is a good thing, and we're going to make progress on more bipartisanship right here in this state. It's okay for politicians of different philosophies to disagree. Just don't make it personal and look for areas where we can agree. Teresa Fedor, who is a leader in fighting this slave trade business in Ohio, you know, with a number of young people who've been trapped in this, you know, we're going to do...
It's alarming, isn't it?
Oh, it's just, you just wonder, what are human beings thinking to trap our kids? I'm going to do everything I can to help her on this. And it's not going to be simple. Everything is complicated, but to think about taking our children or our grandchildren and putting them out for hire, for people to make money at 12 and 13, 14, I mean, it's astounding that this even goes on. And you know what? There's a greater and greater focus on it. I just saw an article somewhere. People are beginning to write about this. Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times just wrote about this. So it's really important we begin to win that battle. I'll give you another one that's important. I have found over the course of this job, and you and I have heard it, and we knew it, but I have to tell you, we have a tsunami of drug addiction in our state and in our country. And whether it's prescription drugs or the flow of heroin, we have made significant progress on the prescription drug abuse problem, but it's like spitting in the ocean for where we need to get to.
When
and
you
this
talk
is
to
another
families
bipartisan
in the southern
effort.
part of the state in particular, they have this, that whole pill,
the pill mills.
The pill mills down there. It's hard for people who I know who live in the suburbs up here, my friends in the suburbs, to conceive of what those families are going through. Are you startled by it?
I've got to tell you, it's here. It's not just in Scioto County. It's here.
And there's heroin here.
But it's
cheap and accessible.
Look, one of the biggest problems that employers have, they tell me, is they bring people in and they can't qualify people who are drug-free. Listen, this problem of prescription drug abuse, methamphetamines, heroin, this is not in somebody else's backyard. It's in our backyard. And the Highway Patrol has stepped up what they do. We're now putting these signs up telling people, if you're a drug dealer and we catch you, we're going to lock you up for 1,000 years. It's a problem. We are attacking it through better education, through penalties, through the medical board, the pharmacy board, for better treatment facilities. But we've got a long way to go. But you know what? It had been ignored the whole time. So at least by bringing it out, we have some reason to be optimistic. But I tell you something, Mom and Dad and the teachers that are out there, just tell these kids every day, don't destroy your brain. The Lord gave you a brain. Do not take these drugs. And Colleen, I think that'd go a long way, but it's not the end of it. But telling kids and warning them in the schools, the churches, the synagogues, and at home, we got to do it. I just talking to my kids about it the other day. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Ohio, and you know, you have an opportunity to serve. Just take advantage of it. Don't wait for tomorrow, the things that you can begin to help improve today.